I don't care what your papers say. The pilot's words cut Amara like a blade. Prejudice, thick and heavy, blocked their path to the jet. 14 years old, identical twins Amara and Amani just wanted to surprise their dad. But Captain Derek Hastings? He saw fraud written all over them. Scam. TikTok clout. He smirked, dialing security. What he didn't know, couldn't possibly fathom, was that Amara's next call would unleash hell. 6 hours of escalating slights, each fueled by the same ugly assumption. Kindness hid beneath Amara's quiet exterior. A storm was coming, and Captain Hastings, he'd lit the fuse. He has no idea how her quiet kindness will change everything. He has no idea how her quiet kindness will change everything. Hours melted away, each indignity piling onto the last, brick by heavy brick, forming an insurmountable wall. It began with the Charlotte sunrise, painting the sky in hues of peach and rose as Amara and Amani Thompson, 14 years old and mirror images of each other, slipped from their elegant home. Their hearts thrummed with a shared secret, a surprise carefully woven over weeks of clandestine planning. Thanksgiving was approaching, and their father, Jonathan, was buried deep in work in Miami. This trip was the only cure. Amara, ever the meticulous planner, smoothed down the fabric of her carry-on, a calming ritual. Beneath her quiet exterior lay a sharp intellect, honed by mock trials and a burning desire for justice. She dreamed of a career fighting for the voiceless, a path forged in the shadow of their mother, Nicole. Amani, a whirlwind of artistic energy, bounced on the balls of her feet, her mind already picturing their father's stunned face. Where Amara saw legal precedents, Amani envisioned the sleek lines of aircraft, a passion inherited from her engineer mother. Their mother's death 2 years prior had cast a long shadow. Dr. Thompson, a brilliant aerospace engineer, had been their North Star. Jonathan, heartbroken, had thrown himself into his work, leaving a void only his daughters could fill. "Your daddy's been working himself to the bone," their grandmother, Evelyn, said, her voice catching in her throat as she watched them. "This surprise will bring him back to life." The girls had sacrificed, squirreling away their allowances, enduring extra chores. The prize? A private charter to Miami, a direct flight to their father's surprise. Miami Executive Terminal, departure at 2 p.m., Gulfstream G550, Amara recited from their printed confirmation, disbelief coloring her tone. "We actually did it, Manny." Amani grinned, momentarily forgetting the nervous flutter in her stomach about flying for the first time since their mother's death. "He's going to lose it in the best way possible." They deliberately avoided discussing the specifics of Jonathan's work. They knew he was a pilot, that he worked long hours, that his job kept him from home. His influence in the aviation industry was a wall he built to protect his daughters. "He's dedicated his entire life to this. He'll be so proud," Evelyn declared, zipping Amani's bag. As the rideshare pulled up, the twins exchanged excited glances, their every text a shared burst of anticipation. They were oblivious to the driver's watchful eyes in the rearview mirror, his gaze lingering on their designer luggage, their youthful exuberance. He didn't see two kids trying to make a surprise. He saw something else entirely. Charlotte Douglas International Airport's private aviation terminal was a world apart. Gleaming glass and polished steel reflected the aspirations of its clientele. Celebrities, CEOs, those whose time equated to fortunes. The twins walked in, heads held high, their confirmation folder clutched tightly in Amara's hand, ready to embark on their surprise. At the reception desk, a white family was being processed with effortless grace by a man named Marcus Webb. Warm smiles, light conversation, a genuine welcome. Then it was the twins' turn. Marcus's smile evaporated, replaced by a suspicion that made Amara's stomach clench. "Can I help you?" The words were polite, the tone ice cold. Amara presented their confirmation. "We're checking in for the 2 p.m. Miami charter." Marcus scrutinized the document as if it were a counterfeit bill. "This is for a Gulfstream G550, he announced, his voice carrying through the silent lobby. "That's a $70,000 flight." Amani, still naive, nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, sir. Our grandmother helped us book it. It's a surprise for our dad." He cross-examined them on the origin of the confirmation, then disappeared behind the counter, typing with agonizing slowness. Other customers, all white, were served efficiently while the twins stood, increasingly conspicuous, beneath the judging stares of the wealthy travelers. 15 minutes stretched into 20. A woman clutched her designer bag tighter as she passed. Finally, Marcus returned with a supervisor, Jennifer Hayes. "There's a fraud alert on this booking," Jennifer stated, her voice ringing with practiced authority. "We need additional verification." Amara's heart pounded. "A fraud alert? We have Guardian authorization, IDs, the confirmation, everything." "The payment method was flagged as suspicious," Jennifer countered, reciting the same script. "We'll need to contact the account holder directly." "But that will ruin the surprise," Amani protested, her voice wavering. Marcus leaned forward, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "Maybe you should have thought about that before attempting to use a credit card that doesn't belong to you." The accusation hung in the air, a suffocating cloud. They were being branded as thieves, criminals. "We didn't use anyone's card without permission," Amara insisted, her voice trembling. Jennifer snapped, "Lower your voice. We're trying to help you understand proper procedures." 25 more excruciating minutes passed. Finally, they were cleared, grudgingly. But Marcus's parting shot, dripping with sarcasm, left no doubt about his true feelings. "Good luck with your flight." Bruised but undeterred, the twins proceeded to TSA security, hoping for a swift resolution. Instead, they encountered Victoria Barnes, an agent whose gaze immediately locked onto them with suspicion. "Random enhanced screening," Victoria announced, her eyes narrowing. "Step aside, please." Amara felt a crack forming inside. "Random? We just watched 10 people go through without any additional screening." Victoria's response was immediate and hostile. "Ma'am, are you refusing to comply with federal security procedures?" "Trapped, refuse, and be arrested. Comply and be humiliated." They stepped into a separate screening area. Their bags were emptied onto a cold steel table. Victoria seized Amani's prescription medication like a prize. "What are these pills? Do you have authorization for controlled substances?" Amani's voice trembled. "It's for anxiety. The prescription is right there, with my name and doctor's information." Victoria ignored her, summoning a supervisor. A spectacle erupted. Passengers stopped and stared. Victoria then began scrolling through Amara's laptop without permission. "Lot of legal documents on here," she sneered. "What's a 14-year-old doing with case files?" "Those are for my mock trial team," Amara explained, fighting to maintain her composure. "I want to be a civil rights attorney." Victoria's expression turned menacing. "Civil rights? So you're some kind of activist troublemaker." Her partner performed an invasive pat-down, her hands lingering inappropriately. Amani felt a wave of nausea, but remained silent. 40 agonizing minutes later, they were finally released. "Have a wonderful flight," Victoria said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Try to stay out of trouble." Shaking and humiliated, their anticipation shattered. The twins wondered aloud why they were being treated like criminals. "Because we're black, Amani," Amara said quietly. "That's all the reason they need." Hungry and running late, they spotted the Sterling Sky Lounge, an upscale restaurant where wealthy patrons dined in comfort. Cameron Price, the host, greeted white diners with genuine warmth. But when he saw the twins, that familiar mask of suspicion descended. "Do you have a reservation?" Amara pulled up the restaurant's website. "Your website says, walk-ins welcome, first-come seating. No reservations required." Cameron didn't even glance at her phone. "We're fully booked. Try the food court in the main terminal." Amani pointed to the empty tables. "But there are open tables right there." "Those are reserved for premium members," Cameron said, his lie blatant. Amara showed him the website again, pointing to the policy. "That information is outdated," Cameron stammered. "Our policy changed." As if on cue, an elderly white couple walked in. Cameron's face transformed. "Welcome back. Your usual table?" He escorted them to a supposedly reserved table, ignoring the twins. "You just said those tables were reserved," Amara protested, her voice strained. Lance Morrison, the manager, appeared. "Is there a problem here? These girls are questioning our seating policies and causing a disturbance," Cameron offered. Lance turned to the twins, his hostility barely concealed. "If you can't respect our establishment's procedures, I'll have to ask you to leave." We're not causing a disturbance, Amara countered. We're asking why we're being treated differently. I don't appreciate accusations, Lance said coldly. Leave now, before I call security. Forced to leave, hungry and humiliated, Amani's voice broke. I hate this. Let's just go home. But Amara's jaw was set. We're seeing Dad. We're not letting them win. She texted her father. Having small issues at the airport. Nothing serious. Can't wait to see you. Love you. There was no response. The twins had no idea that things were about to get much, much worse as they finally reached the departure gate for their chartered Gulfstream G550. Gate agent Lisa Crawford greeted them with the now familiar expression of suspicion. This charter was arranged by minors? She asked, her tone accusatory. That's highly unusual. Amara slid their documentation across the counter. Our grandmother helped us book it online. Everything was paid in full 3 weeks ago. Lisa typed with deliberate slowness, then announced, I'm showing a payment dispute flag on this reservation. Amara's stomach turned to ice. That's impossible. Can I see the flag in your system? Lisa turned the screen away. That's proprietary information, company policy. She made lengthy phone calls while the twins waited. She processed other passengers, all white, with smooth efficiency. Finally, she returned, carrying a printed cancellation notice. This charter has been canceled due to billing irregularities. You'll need to make alternative arrangements. Amani felt the world tilt. What billing irregularities? We have the confirmation showing full payment. Lisa's expression didn't change. I don't know what to tell you. The system shows canceled. There's nothing I can do. Amara showed Lisa the original booking confirmation. This email from your company says confirmed and paid in full. How does that become canceled? Perhaps you should contact our customer service department Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. It's Thursday at 1 p.m., Amara pointed out. We have a 2 p.m. departure. You are customer service. I'm a gate agent, not customer service, Lisa said dismissively. Now please step aside. You're holding up other passengers. It was a lie. The twins tried calling their father again, straight to voicemail. Then the co-pilot, James Reynolds, appeared. He approached Lisa with the casual authority of someone who'd never had his competence questioned. What's the holdup? James asked. We're wheels up in 40 minutes. Lisa leaned in to whisper, but her voice carried. 2 minors claiming they booked the charter. Documents look suspicious, getting major red flags. James glanced at the twins, then back at Lisa with a knowing look. Yeah, I see what you mean. Trust your instincts. Can't be too careful these days. Amara stepped forward, her voice steady. Excuse me, we can hear you. Our documents are completely legitimate. James's dismissal was casual. Ma'am, the gate agent is handling this properly. Please step back and lower your voice. We're not raising our voices, Amani said, tears forming. We're asking for basic fairness. James threatened, if you continue being disruptive, you'll be banned from this terminal permanently. Is that what you want? He turned and walked away. Amani started crying. Amara, they're never going to let us fly. Can we please just go home? But Amara was fighting tears. We didn't do anything wrong. We have every right to be here. Then they saw her. Flight attendant Denise Williams, a black woman in her early 40s, walked toward the gate. For the first time all day, the twins felt a surge of hope. Ma'am, please help us, Amara said, relief flooding her voice. We've been trying to board for over an hour, and everyone keeps questioning our legitimate booking. Denise examined their papers with the same cold suspicion. Her face offered no warmth, no solidarity. Do your parents know you're attempting to fly alone? Amara's hope began to crumble. We have notarized guardian consent right here. Denise read the form with skepticism. From your grandmother? Where are your actual parents? Amani's voice was small, broken. Our mom passed away 2 years ago. Our dad is in Miami. We're trying to surprise him. And he just let 2 14-year-olds fly across the country alone on a private jet? Denise's tone made it clear she found this unbelievable. That doesn't make sense. It's a surprise, Amara explained, her voice cracking. We saved money. We booked everything ourselves. We're trying to do something special for Thanksgiving. Denise's expression hardened. A surprise $70,000 charter? Young ladies, that story is hard to believe. Amara's heart shattered. The betrayal from this woman, someone who should have understood, cut deeper than every other incident combined. "You're black," Amara said, her voice a whisper. "You know what they've been doing to us. You've probably experienced it yourself." Denise's response was cold. "What I know is proper procedure, and this situation has red flags everywhere." She turned to Lisa, her next words sealing the twins' fate. "I support your decision to question this booking. Something isn't right here." Then she walked away. Amani was sobbing. "Even she thinks we're criminals. It doesn't matter what we do. They've already decided who we are." Amara stood there devastated but defiant. "There's a special kind of pain that comes from betrayal by your own community." "They're wrong," Amara said, her voice steady despite the tears. "They're all wrong, and we're going to prove it." That's when Captain Derek Hastings emerged. "What's going on here, Lisa?" Lisa's response was immediate. "Two minors claiming they chartered the Gulfstream. Documentation seems fraudulent. I've canceled the booking." Derek examined their papers like a detective. "A Gulfstream G550? His voice dripped with disbelief. "You two are telling me you booked a $70,000 jet?" "Our family booked it," Amara explained. "We have confirmation, guardian consent, everything required by your company's policies." Derek scoffed. "Your family who conveniently can't be reached to verify any of this." He held up their papers dramatically. "I've been flying private jets for 30 years. I know a scam when I see one." "We're not scamming anyone," Amani pleaded. "Please just call the charter company and verify the booking." Derek's next words would become evidence in a federal civil rights lawsuit. "I don't need to call anyone. I can see with my own eyes that two black kids with a story about a private jet charter. That's fraud. Plain and simple." He'd said it the quiet part out loud. The racism that had been lurking beneath every interaction all morning, finally spoken clearly and undeniably. Lawsuit. "I don't need to call anyone. I can see with my own eyes that two black kids with a story about a private jet charter. That's fraud. Plain and simple." He'd said it the quiet part out loud. The racism that had been lurking beneath every interaction all morning, finally spoken clearly and undeniably. "You just said it," Amara pointed out, her voice shaking with righteous anger. "Two black kids. That's why you won't believe us." Derek's face flushed with rage at having his prejudice called out so directly. "Don't play the race card with me. This is about safety and security, not race." "You didn't question the white family that boarded 20 minutes ago," Amara shot back. "That family had adults present and proper documentation. You have a story and suspicious paperwork." Derek signaled to security guards positioned throughout the terminal. "I'm the pilot in command of this aircraft. FAA regulations give me final authority over who boards, and I'm officially refusing you passage." "On what specific grounds?" Amara demanded, her legal training kicking in even through her trauma. "Name one regulation we violated." Derek leaned in menacingly, using his size and authority to intimidate two 14-year-old girls on the grounds that "I don't trust you. I don't believe your story, and I'm not risking my license, my passengers, or my 30-year reputation on two kids running some kind of social media stunt." Security guards were approaching. Other passengers were openly filming the confrontation. Namani was completely breaking down in tears. The systematic destruction of their dignity was complete. But then something shifted in Amara's demeanor. The fear disappeared. The pleading stopped. Her shoulders straightened, and her voice took on a quality that made everyone present pause. "Fine," she said, pulling out her phone. "We're calling our father right now, and when we do, you're going to regret every single word you just said." Derek laughed with the confidence of a man who'd never faced real consequences for his actions. "Oh, I'm terrified. Let's hear from this mysterious father who let his kids fly across the country alone." Amara dialed with shaking hands. The phone rang once, twice, then it answered. "Amara, sweetheart, why aren't you in school? What's wrong?" And with those words, Captain Derek Hastings' world began to end. This is where everything changes. Subscribe now because you won't believe what happens when the father's true identity is revealed. Comment below. What do you think the father's job is? CEO, pilot, lawyer? Drop your guesses. "Dad," Amara said, her voice breaking with 6 hours of accumulated trauma. We are at Atlanta Hartsfield Private Terminal. We tried to surprise you in Miami for Thanksgiving, but they won't let us on the plane. Jonathan Thompson's voice came through the phone speaker, calm on the surface, but underneath there was something that sounded like ice cracking before an avalanche. Who won't let you on the plane, baby girl? Everyone thought it. Amara's words spilled out in a rush. The check-in agent, security, the restaurant, the gate agent, the co-pilot, and now the captain. He says, "We're running a scam." He called us criminals. He said, "We're two black kids committing fraud." There was a long, terrifying pause. In that silence, everyone in the terminal holding their breath could hear the sound of a man's carefully controlled composure beginning to shatter. "Put me on speaker right now." Amara hit the speaker button with a shaking hand. Her phone's volume was turned up high enough that Jonathan Thompson's voice carried across the gate area, reaching every staff member, every passenger, every person who'd participated in or witnessed the systematic discrimination of his daughters. "To whom am I speaking?" Captain Derek Hastings straightened his shoulders, not yet understanding the magnitude of his mistake. His voice carried the condescending authority of a man used to being obeyed without question. "This is Captain Derek Hastings, and you are Jonathan Thompson." "Those are my daughters you just called criminals." Derek doubled down with the confidence of catastrophic ignorance. "Well, Mr. Thompson, your daughters showed up with questionable documentation for a charter I don't believe they legitimately booked. I have a responsibility to." Jonathan cut him off with surgical precision. "What's your employee identification number, Captain?" Derek was thrown off balance. "Excuse me, your employee ID. Every pilot has one. What's yours?" "I don't see how that's relevant to DH-7384. Jonathan's voice was cold as liquid nitrogen. "Hired March 15th, 2009. 14 years, 7 months of service. Current salary, $195,000 annually, plus benefits." "Correct." The blood drained from Derek's face so quickly that passengers later said he looked like he might faint. "How do you, poor you?" But Jonathan wasn't finished. The terminal had gone absolutely silent. Every person frozen as they witnessed something unprecedented unfold. Lisa Crawford, gate agent employee LC521, James Reynolds, co-pilot, Junior 8847, Denise Williams, flight attendant, DW203. "Shall I continue?" The gate agent dropped her tablet. The co-pilot stumbled backward. Denise Williams put her hand over her mouth in horror. From the check-in area, Marcus Webb appeared, his face the color of old snow. Marcus Webb, check-in supervisor. Victoria Barnes, TSA contractor. Cameron Price and Lance Morrison, Sterling Sky Lounge management. Jonathan's voice was no longer calm. It was controlled fury. Each word precisely chosen and devastatingly delivered. "Every single person who discriminated against my daughters today, I know your names, your employee numbers, your salaries, and your exact location. I have access to security footage showing every interaction. I have recordings of every discriminatory comment. I have witnesses documenting every moment of the systematic racism you inflicted on two 14-year-old children." Derek stammered, his 30-year career flashing before his eyes. "Sir, I don't understand how you could possibly let me make this crystal clear." "Captain Hastings," Jonathan's voice cut through the terminal like a blade. "You didn't just refuse passage to two random teenagers. You racially profiled, publicly humiliated, and threatened with arrest the daughters of the man who signs your paychecks." The terminal went dead silent. Even the background noise of the airport seemed to fade as everyone processed what they were hearing. "What are you talking about?" Derek's voice was barely a whisper. "I am Jonathan Thompson, founder, owner, and chief executive officer of Sky Elite Aviation Holdings, the parent company that owns Prestige Sky Charter, Sterling Sky Lounge, and this entire private aviation terminal. The company that employs you, Captain Hastings, the company that employs every single person who discriminated against my daughters today." The moment of shocked silence that followed felt like the pause between lightning and thunder. Then chaos erupted. Lisa Crawford's face went white as she dropped her tablet, the screen shattering on the marble floor. James Reynolds stumbled backward into a chair. Denise Williams looked like she might be sick. Marcus Webb appeared from the check-in area, looking like a man watching his own execution. But Derek Hastings had his knees buckled slightly, his hand reaching out to steady himself against the desk. "Mr. Thompson, sir," Derek gasped. "There's been a terrible misunderstanding. If I had known who they were," Jonathan's response was a whipcrack of fury. "If you had known what? That they deserved basic human dignity, that they had the right to use a service they legitimately purchased. The only thing you should have needed to know is that they're human beings. Their worth doesn't come from who their father is. Comes from the fact that they exist." Throughout the terminal, departure boards began to flicker. Flight statuses started changing one by one, each update spreading panic through the crowd of wealthy travelers. Delayed operational review. Delayed operational review. Delayed operational review. A passenger stared at the board in confusion. "What's happening? Why are all the Sky Elite flights being delayed?" Jonathan's voice carried through the phone speaker with devastating clarity. "I'm implementing Emergency Protocol Omega. Every single Sky Elite aircraft at every terminal in North America is grounded effective immediately." Derek found his voice, though it came out as a croak. "You can't ground the entire fleet for her." "I just did," Jonathan interrupted. "No Sky Elite aircraft moves until I personally review every second of security footage, every email communication, every decision made regarding my daughters today." Lisa Crawford tried to intervene. "Mr. Thompson, that's over 60 aircraft across 8 states. Hundreds of passengers will be stranded." Jonathan's response was ice cold and absolute. 63 aircraft across 9 states carrying approximately 800 passengers. All grounded because my company apparently hired people who think racism is acceptable business practice. The terminal erupted in chaos. Stranded passengers demanded answers. Gate agents frantically made calls to corporate offices. News of the unprecedented fleet-wide grounding spread through social media like wildfire. Within minutes, Tiberdurgan Skylet shutdown was trending nationally. Derek tried one more desperate appeal. "Sir, please. This is an overreaction to what amounts to a customer service misunderstanding." Jonathan's laugh was bitter and humorless. "A customer service misunderstanding. Captain Hastings, let me tell you what actually happened today. My daughters were racially profiled at check-in and forced to wait 25 minutes while white customers were processed efficiently. They were subjected to illegal invasive searches by TSA agents who examined their medication and personal electronics without cause. They were denied service at a restaurant and watched white customers who arrived after them be seated immediately. They had their legitimate charter fraudulently canceled by a gate agent. They were called criminals, fraudsters, and threats by multiple employees. And finally, they were refused passage by you based purely on your racist assumptions about who belongs on private jets." Each accusation landed like a hammer blow. Derek's face went from white to gray. "That's not a misunderstanding," Jonathan continued. "That's systematic discrimination. That's a pattern of behavior that tells me my company has a culture problem that requires immediate and comprehensive intervention." A black SUV convoy was pulling up to the terminal entrance, visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. 5 vehicles, all identical, all with tinted windows. "I'm 30 minutes away," Jonathan said. "And when I arrive, every single person who participated in the harassment of my daughters will be in a conference room waiting for me. No exceptions, no delays. You have exactly 30 minutes to prepare yourselves for the most consequential conversation of your professional lives." The line went dead. The terminal was in complete pandemonium now. News crews were arriving, having picked up the story from social media. Stranded passengers were demanding compensation, threatening lawsuits, recording everything for their own viral posts. Staff members were panicking, making desperate calls to union representatives and personal lawyers. But the twins stood in the eye of the storm, watching their father's SUV convoy approach with a mixture of relief, vindication, and the bone-deep exhaustion that comes from fighting a battle you shouldn't have had to fight. Amara held Amani's hand tightly. "He's coming." Amani wiped tears from her face. "They're all going to pay for what they did to us." They had no idea how right she was. The SUV convoy pulled up to the terminal entrance with the precision of a military operation. The lead vehicle's door opened, and Jonathan Thompson emerged. He was in his late 40s, tall with a commanding presence that made people instinctively step back to give him space. His expensive suit was perfectly tailored. On his lapel was a small pin, pilot's wings, but not the standard commercial variety. These were custom, marking him as something more than just another captain. Behind him came a formidable team, 5 attorneys from what was clearly a major law firm, an HR director carrying multiple folders thick with documentation, a head of corporate security who'd already pulled every second of security footage from the terminal, a crisis communications specialist who was fielding calls from major news networks. Jonathan walked through the terminal like Moses parting the Red Sea. Staff members who'd been laughing and joking minutes before scattered. Wealthy passengers who'd been complaining about delays suddenly fell silent. The weight of real power, not the petty authority wielded by people like Derek Hastings, but genuine institutional power, backed by billions in assets, filled every corner of that space. But when Jonathan's eyes found his daughters, all that power, all that commanding presence, all that carefully controlled fury melted into something else entirely. He walked directly to them, ignoring everyone else, and both girls ran into his arms. "I'm here now," he said, his voice cracking with emotion as he held them both. "You're safe. I'm so sorry this happened to you." Amani sobbed into his chest. "They said we were criminals, Daddy. They wouldn't believe us. They treated us like we were nothing." Jonathan held them tighter, and witnesses would later report seeing tears streaming down his face. "I know, baby girl. I know. And they're going to answer for every single moment of pain they caused you." He kissed both their heads, wiped their tears with gentle hands that trembled slightly with suppressed rage. For a long moment he just held them, giving them the safety and comfort they'd been denied all morning. Then his expression hardened to stone. He turned to face the assembled staff members who'd tormented his daughters, and every person who'd participated in their systematic degradation was standing there looking terrified. "Someone get me a conference room," Jonathan said, his voice carrying absolute authority. "Every employee who interacted with my daughters today will be there in 5 minutes. No exceptions." His security director started to speak. "Sir, we can handle the disciplinary process through normal HR channels." Jonathan cut him off. "This is personal. I'm handling it myself." He looked down at his daughters. "I want you both there. I want you to see justice happen in real time." "You've earned that right." The twins nodded, still shaking, but drawing strength from their father's presence. As they walked toward the conference room, staff members parted before them like guilty defendants, watching Judgment Day approach. What happened in that conference room over the next hour would end careers, trigger federal investigations, and transform an entire industry. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, smash that subscribe button right now. Hit the notification bell because the reckoning is about to begin and you won't want to miss a single moment. Comment below. What punishment do you think these employees deserve? Let us know. The conference room at the Atlanta Hartsfield private terminal was designed for VIP client meetings. Expensive leather chairs surrounded a polished mahogany table. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the tarmac where grounded aircraft sat like monuments to Jonathan Thompson's power. Every employee who discriminated against the twins was forced to sit at that table. Marcus Webb from check-in, Lisa Crawford, the gate agent, James Reynolds, the co-pilot, Denise Williams, the flight attendant, Cameron Price and Lance Morrison from the restaurant, and seated at the head of the table, Captain Derek Hastings, looking like a man watching his entire world collapse. Victoria Barnes, the TSA contractor, stood near the wall since she wasn't technically a Sky Elite employee, but Jonathan had insisted she be present for what was coming. Jonathan's legal team stood along the perimeter with recording devices, documenting every word, every expression, every admission that would later become evidence in civil rights. Lawsuits and federal investigations. The twins sat beside their father, still shaking, but no longer crying. They were documenting everything on their phones, creating their own record of justice, finally devastatingly delivered. Jonathan stood at the head of the table, his hands resting on the back of his chair. When he spoke, his voice was calm, controlled, and absolutely terrifying in its precision. "Let me explain what's going to happen here today. Each of you will have an opportunity to explain your actions. You will answer my questions truthfully and completely. You will take responsibility for your decisions, and then you will face consequences that are proportional to the harm you inflicted on my children." He opened a folder in front of him, pulled out the first document, and turned to Marcus Webb. Mr. Webb, you told my daughters their confirmation looked irregular. You made them wait 25 minutes while you processed white customers efficiently around them. You accused them of using a stolen credit card. Explain your reasoning. Marcus stammered, his face flushed with humiliation and fear. The payment methods seemed questionable because minors don't typically book $70,000 charters. Jonathan interrupted with surgical precision. The payment came from my corporate account, the same account that's been used for 317 charters this year alone, generating over $21 million in revenue for this company. What specifically about that account was questionable? I didn't know it was your account. Jonathan leaned forward. You didn't verify. You didn't make a single phone call to the charter company. You didn't check the booking history. You saw two black teenagers with an expensive charter, and you assumed fraud. That's not a procedural error, Mr. Webb. That's racism. He slid a termination letter across the table. You're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises. You'll receive 2 weeks severance as required by your contract, and then your association with Sky Elite Aviation ends permanently. Additionally, your termination will be reported to the National Private Aviation Association. You'll find it difficult to work in this industry again. Marcus's face crumpled. Please, I have a mortgage, a family. Jonathan's expression didn't soften even slightly. My daughters are family. You treated them like criminals. Actions have consequences. Security guards appeared at the door. Marcus Webb was escorted out, his career in aviation ending with the same brutal efficiency he'd used to humiliate two 14-year-old girls. Jonathan turned to his next target. Miss Barnes, you subjected my daughters to random enhanced screening that took 40 minutes. You examined their prescription medication and personal electronics without cause. You made loud comments about being careful with certain types of people. Let's discuss the randomness of your selection process. He opened his laptop and turned it toward the table. On the screen was security footage from that morning's checkpoint, operations time-stamped and cataloged. This is footage from your checkpoint between 9 a.m. and noon today. In 3 hours, you processed 47 passengers through that security lane. You selected 6 people for enhanced screening. All 6 were people of color. The statistical probability of that being random is 0.003%. Victoria tried to defend herself. I follow TSA protocols for random selection based on behavior, and Jonathan pulled up another document. I've already filed a complaint with the Department of Transportation and TSA oversight. I've provided them with this footage along with documentation of similar patterns over the past 6 months. Your contractor's status will be terminated. You'll be investigated for civil rights violations, and you'll never work airport security again. He closed the laptop with finality. You violated federal law by conducting searches without probable cause. You racially profiled passengers in a systematic pattern. And you traumatized my daughters with invasive procedures that had no basis in legitimate security concerns. You're done. Victoria's face went pale, but she said nothing. There was nothing to say. Cameron Price and Lance Morrison from the restaurant were next. Jonathan pulled up screenshots on his tablet. Mr. Price, Mr. Morrison, you told my daughters your restaurant was fully booked despite multiple empty tables. You claim to have a reservation system that your own website explicitly states doesn't exist. Then you seated white customers who arrived after my daughters in full view of them, making your discrimination as public and humiliating as possible. Cameron tried to explain. We sometimes reserve tables for regulars as a courtesy. Jonathan played an audio recording. It was from Amara's phone capturing the entire interaction. Cameron's voice came through clearly, denying them service and then immediately welcoming white customers. That's not courtesy, Mr. Price, that's segregation. And it happened in a restaurant that operates under a lease from Sky Elite Aviation Holdings. He slid another document across the table. Your lease is terminated effective tonight. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises. Additionally, I'm filing a complaint with the Georgia Restaurant Association and the local health department for discriminatory service practices. Your establishment will be flagged, and I'll personally ensure that every business owner in this airport knows exactly why you were removed. Lance Morrison's hands were shaking. We'll fight this. We have contracts. Jonathan's smile was cold. Read your lease. Section 14, paragraph 3. Discriminatory practices are grounds for immediate termination without penalty. I have audio evidence. I have witnesses. I have my daughter's testimony. You can fight it if you want, but you'll lose. And you'll spend legal fees you don't have on a battle you can't win. The restaurant owners were escorted out, their business destroyed by their own prejudice. Lisa Crawford was crying before Jonathan even turned to her. Miss Crawford, you canceled my daughter's charter, citing billing irregularities that didn't exist. I've had our IT department pull the system logs. There was no payment dispute. There was no flag. You manually canceled their booking and falsified the cancellation reason. That's not just discrimination. That's fraud, Lisa sobbed. Please, I have 2 kids of my own. I need this job. Jonathan's voice didn't waver. My daughters are kids, too. You treated them like criminals anyway. You lied to them. You abused your authority. And you did it knowing that they were vulnerable children who had no recourse against your power. He handed her the termination letter. Terminated for cause, no severance, and I'm referring your case to law enforcement for investigation of fraudulent business practices. You falsified company records to discriminate against customers. That's a crime. Lisa was escorted out, still crying, her pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears. James Reynolds, the co-pilot, was next. Mr. Reynolds, you told Lisa Crawford to trust her instincts about my daughters. You suggested they were problems that needed to be handled carefully. You threatened them with permanent bans for asking questions. What instincts were you trusting? When they boarded the Gulfstream G550, the same model they'd been banned from, their father was waiting in the cabin. How does it feel, baby girls? Jonathan asked, pulling them both into a hug. Different, Amani said. Better. But we shouldn't have had to fight this hard for basic respect. No, you shouldn't have, Jonathan agreed. But you did fight and you changed an entire industry in the process. Amara looked out the window at the terminal. What happened to all the people who discriminated against us? Jonathan's expression was grim satisfaction. Derek Hastings lost his pilot's license permanently and is facing personal bankruptcy from the lawsuit. Marcus, Lisa, and James are all blacklisted from aviation. Victoria is under federal investigation. Cameron and Lance lost their business. And Denise, Amani asked, leading our civil rights division. She's training 20,000 employees across the industry, turning her biggest failure into her life's purpose. The plane began taxiing toward the runway. As they lifted off into the clear blue sky, Amara pulled out her phone and posted a photo of the view with a caption. 7 months ago, we were banned from this flight because of the color of our skin. Today we're flying because justice demanded change. To everyone facing discrimination, your voice matters, your dignity matters, and change is possible when we refuse to accept anything less. The post went viral immediately, shared hundreds of thousands of times, with comments from people around the world sharing their own stories of discrimination and hope. But perhaps the most powerful moment came 3 weeks later. A young black girl named Kennedy, about 10 years old, was boarding a Sky Elite flight with her family at that same Atlanta terminal. The gate agent, one of the new hires trained under Denise Williams' program, greeted her with genuine warmth. "Welcome aboard, sweetness. Is this your first time flying private?" Kennedy nodded shyly. "You're going to love it. And you know what? 2 brave girls who look like you helped make sure everyone gets treated with respect here. You're flying in a better world because of them." Kennedy smiled, not fully understanding, but feeling safe in a way that shouldn't be remarkable, but was. Her mother, overhearing the exchange, pulled out her phone and recorded the moment. She later sent the video to Jonathan Thompson with a simple message. "Thank you for what your daughters did. My baby gets to fly without fear because of their courage." Jonathan showed the video to Amara and Amani that night. All 3 of them cried because justice isn't just about punishing the guilty. It's about protecting the innocent who come after us. It's about building a world where a 10-year-old black girl can board a private jet and feel welcomed instead of suspected. Where 14-year-old twins can surprise their father without being called criminals. Where dignity isn't negotiable and humanity isn't conditional, the transformation of Sky Elite Aviation was complete. But the work of creating a just society continued. Because in a world where discrimination still existed in countless forms and institutions, there would always be more systems to challenge, more barriers to overcome, more victories to achieve, and more young people to inspire with the knowledge that their voices mattered and their courage could change the world. And somewhere at Miami Executive Airport, at the very gate where two teenagers had once been denied boarding because of the color of their skin, passengers of all backgrounds were now boarding their flights with the dignity, respect, and equal treatment that every human being deserved. The Sky Elite jets that had once been symbols of exclusion and discrimination had become symbols of inclusion, equality, and the transformative power of moral courage. Every flight that departed carried not just passengers to their destinations, but the promise that the arc of justice, when pulled by determined hands and courageous hearts, truly does bend toward equality and human dignity for all. If this story of courage, justice, and transformation moved you, please subscribe to this channel. We share stories that matter, stories that inspire change, stories that remind us that one person's courage can transform an entire system. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next powerful story. What industry do you think needs this kind of transformation next? Healthcare, education, banking, housing? Drop your answer in the comments below, and let's start a conversation about where change is needed most. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Together, we can build a more just world. Thank you for watching. Remember, your voice matters. Your dignity is non-negotiable, and change is always possible when we refuse to accept injustice. Until next time, stand firm in your truth.